Alrighty. Hold, please, while I start my Instagram. How are you, my darling?
I'm good. Happy Monday. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to one Facebook page, one Instagram page, Twitch, X, of course, YouTube, what else? Rumble, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm forgetting a couple others, but what am I forgetting?
Welcome to them all. I think you forgot Amazon Music, but
There we go. Yes. So, why did I say one Facebook page and one Instagram page? Well,
yes, you have big news that happened this week.
I did. So I got up Thursday morning and my Instagram and Facebook was suspended.
Which is just crazy. I mean, we went through that with YouTube and what, maybe a month ago?
Mhm.
And now they turned around and ban your social medias
Yes. Yep.
for
So,
for no reason. I
no.
mean, no warning, no, you know,
Mm-mm.
please refrain from, no nothing. It was just a
You went against
poof.
company standards and well, I can't and you're supposed to be able to log in and to appeal it and I can't even do that. Like I'm completely locked out. Like and then if I change the password, it doesn't even email my email address or my text give me a text like none of that's happening. So I might have gotten hacked. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty baffled at the whole situation because obviously I've never went through against company standard.
Which just gets
Community,
me, yeah,
community. Sorry,
community
yeah,
standard.
community. Yeah,
Which is the same thing, that they tried to end up and tell us with our YouTube.
yeah.
Yes, we were able to end up and get it back, right, after we went to the whole rigmarole of creating a secondary one, but it's just the fact of you didn't post anything,
Mm-mm.
controversial.
Mm-mm.
So,
In fact, I hadn't posted for a couple of days anything. And
mhm.
so that's what was like really like it'd be one thing if I had I hadn't posted anything. It was very strange. I don't know. So anyway, that's the scoop on that. So moving on. Oh, and what am I doing? Well, I did a lot of research in the past few days. I did finally find an email address. I did send an email last night. We're going to I'm going to hold out for a while and see if I can get anywhere. If not, I will have to start over on everything, which is crazy because I know my Facebook page was old. It was gosh, almost close to 20 years old.
That's just unreal.
Yeah. So anyway, but moving on.
We are here, and obviously tonight's topic, for many of you that are in the United States, we have Thanksgiving coming up. Um, so the topic tonight that my lovely co-host come up with was Thanksgiving Uncovered, a feast of truth and healing beyond the plate. So, what exactly and where are we going with that theme for tonight?
Well, I mean, you know, we have this practical, scenarios. The holiday table is set, and we talk a lot about food, right? But I thought it would be interesting topic tonight to talk more about the mental health side of things, the gratitude, the what it does to the brain, emotional triggers, right, with family dynamics. And then, of course, we will touch on some food guilt along with some mental wellness and just kind of rounding it out. But I just thought it would be kind of a little break from the food part of things. I'm sure everybody's talking about, oh, what you should eat and shouldn't eat. For Thanksgiving. And I thought there's more of a mental aspect to all of this that might be kind of a fun subject to dive into.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It does go, it's not just about the food, it's the whole nervous system, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of emotional triggers too,
Mhm.
right? Whether that's family dynamic or chaos that maybe happened in the holidays,
Yep.
and how the individual, right, chooses to show up to those events,
Yes.
and making sure that we have those proper, boundaries in place, and we know what to do, just to really protect ourselves. But
Mhm.
and that's one of the things that I do think a lot of people underutilize, is the fact of how to, control themselves, how to control their nervous system, how to,
Mhm.
navigate things like that. Because a lot of what you see on social media, especially right now, is wars between food camps, right? It's
Mhm.
wars between diet cultures, it's wars between, but no one, or very few, are discussing the beyond.
Right.
And that was really important as part of, both of our journeys.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's start off and talk about the perfect Thanksgiving, right? Um, it's a myth. But, what if you're the host and, you're stressing over that flawless turkey, the picture perfect table setting, the Pinterest type, place
Mm.
cards and the perfect tablescape and, decorations and what are you wearing and do you have the cute little turkey apron on and on and on and on. And the stress alone of that, because there's so many social media posts, that's a pun, um, that show the perfect, right? The picture perfect Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And I think that's where many people need to, not only in Thanksgiving, but in the whole process, right? Is
Mhm.
let go of that thought of perfection,
Mhm.
right? I host ours every year. We're just kind of the central location. And then my husband's, brother, it's easier for him to come here than it is to travel a couple hours. So, I always end up and I host, but I kind of chuckled when you were discussing it, right?
Yeah.
Because of that Pinterest picture perfect, because I'm like, they get what they get, right? They don't come to end up and see the fancy, see the, it's sure there were holidays. I mean, I can remember, growing up, I'll end up and have kind of that ritual, of getting up, having a cup of coffee, eating, right? But having a cup of coffee and watching the Macy Day Parade,
Mhm.
because for me, that's, that emotional tie. And that was one thing that my grandma for many, many years, right? And so replicating or having that piece of calm, before, everything else. And that again is going back to, the picture perfect. And that's where people end up and start to stress themselves out and
Mhm.
create this emotional load, is because they strive for that perfect. They strive to be, the perfect, golden brown turkey and whatever else they end up and they make, right? We're not going to end
Right.
up and dive into the whole food thing, but it's a case of looking for that dopamine, right? And then they start, something goes awry, or it's not, perfect, or maybe it's, you overcooked something, or whatever the case may be. And that's when they end up and they get into the comfort food. That's when they get into the sugars, the desserts, the overeating, and just throw caution, to the wind. And they start to end up and feel judged,
Yeah.
right? Instead of learning, okay, is what it is, right? We move on. They end up and they start that whole chaos, and the body keeps that. The
Sure.
body ends up and holds on to that. So,
Right. Well, I mean, one thing you can do is instead of having that picture perfect, you know, food and table setting and so forth is to delegate, right? Tell people to bring dishes and embrace that imperfection as part of a memory instead of it being this Instagram worthy Pinterest picture, right? 'Cause I'm sorry, no family is flawless,
mhm,
right? And then what do you do when there's things are inherited, right?
mhm.
Traditions, right? What we've always done and we always have to do. And what happens to the mind, you know, and that stress factor and things like that when there's that expectation of this tradition?
Well, and that's where the system starts to end up and get dysregulated, not only emotionally, right? Some people have hard triggers. They it brings up suppressed states, right? And and that's also where it can end up and lead into those hunger cues, and they become distorted, if you will, right?
Mhm.
We've talked with Coach Sly in the roundtable about the halt and the different strategies, right, to end up and use. But many times when the system becomes dysregulated, the cortisol is rising, blood sugar starts to get imbalanced. You end up, maybe you have a really large meal, or you lean into some of those traditions, and your blood sugar starts to go
Mhm.
up.
Mhm.
When you're on the blood sugar roller coaster, impulse control drops, right? You no longer, a lot of people will end up and talk about willpower, but it's not necessarily willpower. It's more of, you know you just aren't mindfully thinking. You're seeking, again, that dopamine, right?
Mhm.
What is going to end up and help you to feel good,
Right.
right? Because history and tradition, my grandma's passed, but I choose to, sit down and take that moment and have my cup of coffee with the parade, the nostalgia of it, instead of trying to suppress it and then it leading to other things. Um, but that's where stress can be interpreted different ways. And
Mhm.
if your body isn't, quote, behaving right, because you're trying to override or you're trying to self-regulate, and it gets really, really hectic, and it
Yeah.
creates more of a system overload. And what happens then is, and that's where we start to end up and lose people, right? It's not
Sure.
necessarily that these 6 weeks are, we see a rise in illness, right? And a lot of that does end up and come because people start this cycle where cortisol spikes, glucose rises, hunger craving, increases, and they just start to, lead into it.
Mhm.
What not only with Thanksgiving, but it tends to be, one of the first holidays where then it goes into, okay, maybe you overeat on Thursday and you try to be really good on Friday, or maybe you have, family Thanksgivings. I mean, I've
Yeah.
talked to, friends of mine, and they have anywhere between, 5 and 6 Thanksgivings to end up and go to. And of course, then next week is the beginning of December. So then holiday
Yeah.
parties start. And,
Yeah.
this cycle starts to end up and wear the immune system down and wear the body down. And it's not that certain foods, are bad. It's just how our body metabolizes those foods.
Right. Well, let's talk about gratitude in the brain, right? Because there's a neuroscience of gratitude that is very important, right? First of all, you know, if you have guests and they're drained because they've traveled, they've battled traffic, you know, or all the preparation, right, of going into it, what would you suggest they do to help counteract that drained feeling?
Well, anything that, I mean, ideally, again, taking just that few minutes to recharge yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing the affirmations, doing, some breathing, even. Like I end up and I have, my little, or we have, I should say, all three of us coaches have them now, but the touch points,
Mm-hmm.
I can shove them in my pocket, right? And I
Right.
can just simply, travel with them
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of get the body back in check if I'm traveling,
Right.
right? If you're flying to family or something along those lines. But if you're really just looking at, okay, maybe you've traveled a couple hours, traffic, whatever, right? Anything that is going to help with mood stability, calm,
Mm-hmm.
and creating that. So maybe that's, going outside and grounding, maybe that's breath work, whatever, you know, whatever you relate with,
Mm-hmm.
so that you stop yourself before you end up and react, right? It
Right.
helps with bringing it back to that prefrontal cortex, right? And the part of the brain that handles the decision making, the emotions, the impulse, that whole side of it. And so taking that moment, right, to improve the nervous system, work on the
Right.
vagus nerve. If it, singing, humming,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things that, you can end up and do to kind of soften that heart rate even.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, and I love the quick gratitude journal, or think about one of the joys that you've experienced so far that day. You're trying to prime the mind for positivity. That's where the neuroscience of all of that starts. What happens when the room feels chaotic as the food is served, and you can actually take control of that situation. You can pause for 60 seconds of silence before eating. If you are a praying family, obviously you have everyone pray. Breathe, invite everyone to breathe, and talk about the smells, right? The aroma of what you are, all the food surrounding you. You can thank the person and or all the people that prepared the meals, right? And again, that sets the tone for getting ready to eat that meal.
The other beneficial thing is to even just go, after meal walk, getting away from the
Yes.
table, right? I can't tell
Yes.
you how many times people will end up and, pick the turkey off the bone and then they continue just to, mindlessly eat while they're,
Hmm.
pulling it, or,
Yeah.
putting leftovers away and they're, licking the spoons. All of that ends up and adds up.
Right.
So,
You can also redirect the gratitude, right? Um, you can look at that other person that you can tell, like, oh, this is gonna turn into some negativity, and you can, number one, give them a hug,
mhm.
right? Touching is huge. Make eye contact or share a story about how they've impacted you, and direct that gratitude away from the negativity.
Yeah, the hugging aspect of, with the
Mhm.
oxytocin, really does end up and help. And it also will help with deepening those relationships. Maybe there's
Mhm.
been some conflict, and it'll help with, building trust, supporting that emotional side too.
Yeah.
So when whether it's others or, whatever, however the family dynamic is, right? It
Mhm.
does end up and help to strengthen that compassion and be more understanding if you can, have a little bit of gratitude and that connection.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? When politics comes up at the table, right? You can redirect that with that gratitude pivot, right? You can kind of interrupt and, hey, let's share one thing we're grateful for instead. Or if you have to, like you suggested earlier, take a break, get up
Mhm.
and go outside and breathe, and come back in before re-engaging, right?
Mhm.
Give yourself that pause ritual. Build that into when you know you need it. You don't have to sit there and you just don't. Again, go to the bathroom, whatever it is that you need to take a break, right?
Well, or even if you have, some youngsters in the family, go
Mhm.
play catch with them, or, go outside, right?
Right.
You
Right.
you you can be very nonchalant about it, right?
Yeah.
Of, "Oh, I'm gonna end up and go see how, Billy's doing outside," or,
Right.
I understand that's a little bit different for our friends that, are in the northern side of things. I think even us, it's only gonna be like 40 or something like that,
Ooh.
Thursday. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's
Ooh.
cold. Our high, hey, I'll take
Mm.
40 because our high next week was only supposed to be in like the teens. So, um,
Well, let's see. What are we? 62. There we go.
yeah, it's 43 on Thursday. So,
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things you can do, right?
mhm,
You can even set the tone at the beginning of the meal. I don't know if you guys do this, Becky, but you go around and say what you're thankful for. Do you guys do that?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you can make a rule that you can't copy someone else.
It really makes people end up and reflect,
Yes,
right? And digging deeper. It's not like I'm thankful that we're all gathered today. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
we are absolutely thankful, but it's digging deeper into that. And
yeah.
so,
Well, and let's give another scenario here. So plates are piled high, right? And the conversations just kind of feel shallow. You can suggest maybe a memory share. Each person tells one favorite moment from the past year. That'll get the conversation going.
mhm,
Or someone complains, "Oh my goodness, there's not enough pie," "Oh my gosh, we don't have enough of whatever it is." And you can re-highlight that and say, "Yeah, well, but there's enough laughter and warmth here." Again, reframing. See, there's that perfection of, "Oh my goodness, we didn't have." Normally, we're all like, there's so much food
stuffed.
that, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, really. Or what do you do if somebody sits and scrolls on their phone during dinner?
That's one of the biggest things that, our family anyway, especially when we're together on holidays. I mean, we don't
Mhm.
have that, it's kind of a phone free zone, right? Not to say
Mhm.
that after the meal, the boys may, sit together and laugh over TikTok, or, someone's scrolling their social media, which there's always kind of that group, right? There's the group that are talking, or they're playing cards, or, the last time we were together, we ended up playing Monopoly and a couple different card games. So, that's always a way to end up and continue to engage, right? Do something
Right.
else than
Right.
just, taking a nap on the couch.
Right. Definitely. And let's talk about boundaries, right? You can set boundaries before you ever go into the situation, into that family dinner, or that family dynamic, right? You pre-plan those boundary settings. How long are we going to stay, right? When do we take breaks? Oh, hey, let's go for a walk, or things like that. But you have to have pre-planned boundaries set in place, so when those scenarios come up, you're ready to deal with them.
Yeah. Well, and that there's multiple scenarios, right, where not only the boundaries of that, but even like your food pushers,
Oh,
right? Here,
yeah.
have a bite, So going into both holidays, I mean, we'll talk about Christmas once we get to December, but really having kind of a narrative, you know, if they end up and they offer you something, how are you going to protect yourself, right? How do you politely decline food without that guilt? Because
Mhm.
sometimes that's people's love language, right? But you're not rejecting the person, you're just choosing yourself. So, simple form can end up in being thank you. It looks amazing, but I'm good right now. I'm stuffed, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'm already satisfied. You made such a great meal. I appreciate the offer, you
Mhm.
know. It, the biggest thing, and you and I talk about it a lot, is
Yeah.
not over explaining,
Right.
right? You don't have to have this long explanation, right? You don't have to debate over diets or debate over, right? Um, because one, family ends up and likes it, but um, oh, I tried this and it works, or I tried that and it works, or this is the way, that type of thing. It doesn't need to end up and come into the family holiday,
Right.
right? You can leave, and kind of like what we said too with setting those boundaries is knowing when to leave the room. Doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
dramatic. You don't have to, storm off. It's just when you can see that the conversation is turning judgmental,
Mhm.
walk out,
Right.
go check on something, right? Um, you can usually tell, right, when someone is starting to feel that tightening, that the comments,
Mm.
right, of where that pattern is going.
Yeah.
And, again, step outside for a couple minutes, breathe, perspective, right? Look around. What do you end up and see? Taking that out of your head, because sometimes we just start to run that narrative in our head and we need to focus that away from, right? Bring it back to that safety. So, taking that break.
Absolutely. Mental spaciousness, right? That overcrowded schedules and that overstimulation, and it's draining your energy, and abundance isn't about excess. And you have to understand that. It's about being present, but it's not about excess.
Mhm.
And you can have mental fast, right? Limit social media, which apparently I'm on right now. Um, say no to draining comments and focus on quality time. Um, there is so much that I know there's um, a luncheon, a holiday luncheon that I've been invited to, and it happens to be on my day off, and I have chosen not to partake.
Yeah, and that's where navigating, those holidays, making sure that if you do go to the luncheon, I mean, I understand, you're not going, but
Right.
learning to navigate those,
Mhm.
right? What does that end up and look like, right? I have coaching clients that will ask me all the time,
Yeah.
their office party, or their office is going out for a Christmas
Yeah.
luncheon, or dinner even, right?
Mhm.
And so that's one of the things, like I said, we weren't going to end up and bring to food into tonight, but that is part of it, is because
It is.
people will get so into a froze state
Mhm.
that they don't know where to choose, right?
Well, but yeah, because it triggers, right, anxiety, guilt, and shame. That's what it's
Mhm.
triggering, right? And very often that diet culture narratives or that dynamic feeling saying no is literally feeling like a rejection.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going, out to eat, right, you can end up make
Mhm.
protein first,
Mhm.
right? So when you're choosing your meal, it's not that you're, and I use this with my family all the time. They're like, "Well, you eat a certain way, you're
Yeah.
the one that's watching what you're eating. Where
Yeah.
do you want to eat?" And I'm like,
Right.
"I can eat anywhere. I
Right.
just end up and choose my protein, right?
Mhm.
And then I choose my carb with intention, right? Whether it's a
Right.
baked potato, right? Don't get the loaded baked potato that has butter and sour cream and bacon and cheese and, you know, load it all up, right?
Yeah.
Or a sweet potato, right? Choose those with intention. And a lot of times, wherever you go, they will end up in substitute.
Yeah.
So, you can always end up and do that. If you're going somewhere that, the bread basket is on the table, pass it down the table,
Mhm.
right? If you choose not to eat bread, It's just that type of thing, right? Hydrate with water, right? Alcohol is not going to end up and treat your body well, right? It
Right.
drops these um inhibitions,
Yeah.
right? It increases your cravings, and it shuts down every other, metabolic process until that alcohol is metabolized. So it's not, beneficial to end up and choose it. Um, Hydrate with a sparkling water, hydrate, with something that is not non-alcoholic. And trust me, you'll have just as much fun at the holiday dinner, right?
Right.
And you'll feel better on the Friday. You
Yeah.
know, that's how do you end up, navigating the Friday after? And what does the aftermath of your holiday end up and look
Mhm.
like?
Well, I mean, again, plan ahead, right? You
Mhm.
know that grandma always pushes extra servings. And so you can decide in advance that you're going to take a small portion, compliment it, and politely decline seconds. Again, knowing pre-planning even the responses helps reduce anxiety. So you have it before before that moment happens. Somebody says, oh, you'll offend me if you don't eat more. I know I've heard that in the
Mhm.
past, and it's like, look, I appreciate your love through food, and right now, my body is telling me it is really full, maybe later, and later never comes, right? um, you know, oh, somebody tells you that you're eating like a bird. And it's like, you know, turn it into a funny. It's like I'm saving room for gratitude instead of stuffing or right something a playful tone to avoid conflict, and it also reduces the pressure. Um, oh, you got to have more turkey, or you got to have, and it's like I really enjoyed it. I want to savor what I have. That way, you're validating their cooking without compromising your boundaries. Um, so a lot of different ways of how you can do that. Like you said, go get a sparkling water in
Mhm.
a glass that looks like maybe you're drinking alcohol. You can have just as much fun, but it's not compromising what it is, the boundaries you've set, right?
Mhm.
You know, thank you for making this. It means a lot, but I'm really full. But can I get your recipe?
Yeah. Well, and that's where, a lot of times it's making that choice and making those verbal suggestions, right, towards others, right? You're not, well, I can't end up and eat that, or I'm not, it doesn't have to be confrontational. It just end up and, state the fact that, I'm choosing, right, not to, or I'm full, or, something along those lines. Because trust me, the aftermath, right, the next day, Friday morning, you don't want to end up and wake up feeling like crap, right?
Right,
But it also
right.
shouldn't be this vicious cycle. And this is where people end up and get into it of, I'm going to eat until, I'm Thanksgiving full. I'm going to end up and feast, and I'm going to, X, Y, and Z, right? And then, oh, I'll just end up and
Hmm.
I'll fast tomorrow, or I won't eat tomorrow because I overate yesterday,
Right.
right? They get into this whole, again, this shame spiral of, well, I have to end up and do this, or I have to do that, right? I even see it in exercise of people that, hit the gym, and, they're busting it out in the gym the next day because they ended up and overate, right?
Hmm.
One meal is not going to end up and erase all your progress. Sure, you may end up and retain some fluid. You may, because it's not your normal, eating, but you're not going to gain 10 pounds of fat just because you
Right.
ate one meal, right?
Right.
So, still getting your morning light, moving your body like you normally would, respecting your
Right.
body,
Right.
hydrating, making sure you're getting those minerals and that protein rich breakfast,
Hmm.
right? All of that is going to help with this restriction punishment cycle that a lot of people end up and have.
Right.
And again, we're looking at building a sustainable lifestyle. We're not looking at, oh, forget it. I'm not going to worry about the next 5 weeks of the year. I'll start again, on the 1st of January.
Right.
That's not the cycle we're looking for. We're looking at how can we navigate these holidays
Yeah.
and make it to where, you end up and you feel good.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so some takeaways for tonight is set your boundaries early. Decide what conversations or food pressures you're going to engage with and practice polite but firm responses. Create that gratitude ritual. Go beyond the list. Share stories. Hug someone. Pause for silence before a meal. Pray. Whatever it is that you do, honor your mental spaciousness. Limit that overstimulation by taking breaks, by stepping outside. I don't care if it's 5 below 0. You can step outside for a few minutes. Seriously, you can
No.
for a few minutes and take a break. Reduce the social media during the holiday and especially during gatherings, right? Um,
Mhm.
Handle food pushers with compassion. They're really not, most of them are coming at it at a good place, but you can thank them for their effort. And you can even offer to take food home, which you accidentally forget to take home, or you do take home and you throw it out. Um, but you can redirect it with appreciation, reframe that perfectionism. Remember, connection, the holidays, Thanksgiving, that are about connection, and it's way more than the flawless pies or that picture perfect table, right? And support your mental health needs. If loneliness or you're starting to feel that seasonal depression rise, um, create your chosen family, or reach out to friends and establish new traditions that nurture your belonging. And that's something that I think we just hit on our next topic for our seasonal depression coming
Mm.
up. What do you think?
I think
That
that would
will
be a great topic for next week with our roundtable, since we'll have Coach Sly
I
there.
think so. I think so. And then practice your self compassion, right? After your meal. Literally, you can place your hand on your heart and affirm that you are grateful for the nourishment and the joy and the connection. That is one thing that I have learned in the meditation and yoga that I've done is what we end it by putting our hands on our heart and being thankful for being present just in the moment of being able to stretch your body and doing the meditation. Um, it hopefully it takes you into these scenarios and with more resilience and compassion and clarity, um, just to protect right that um, feast of truth and healing beyond the plate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hopefully everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And remember, gratitude isn't bypassing or pretending that everything is perfect. It's just teaching your brain to look for that safety and the possibility. Continue the progress. We are here. We will be back next Monday as the roundtable.
Yes, with Coach Sly. And it sounds like we're going to be talking about seasonal depression.
Sounds like a great topic. Make sure you like, follow, and stay tuned as to what comes with social media.
Absolutely. Well, happy Thanksgiving to those of you that celebrate, and we will see you here next week.
Sounds good. Have a